Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them. And I want to talk real quick about this Elvira Mistress of the Dark Classic Years Omnibus that's being crowdfunded right now on Indiegogo from our friends at Dynamite. Now, you know, I'm a huge Elvira fan, and I'm loving the new comics that Dynamite is producing. However, there were comics from back in the days, from the 90s, that I've never been able to get into. Well, Dynamite's already crowdfunded a Volume 1 Classic Years Omnibus, and now they're doing a Volume 2. So you can check it out right now at the link in the description below, and you can also get some really cool variant covers, some photo covers, some metal covers, some CGC type stuff, or just get the omnibus if you want it. And if you missed out on Volume 1, that's available as well. So check it out, Elvira Mistress of the Dark Classic Years Collection, Volume 2. And we always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, Shaolin Cowboy, Cruel to Be Kin, issue number 4. Now this book is ridiculous. Ridiculously awesome. Jeff Darrow has crafted such a weird, insane, and enjoyable tale with the latest volume of Shaolin Cowboy. Shaolin Cowboy is part monk, part cowboy, but all badass, right? In this entire series, for the most part, he's been up against this, like, Hitler baby clone that's connected to this giant jellyfish, and there's, like, a Komodo dragon that's like telling this story. And it kind of wraps all of that up here in issue number 4, but it sets the story in a different direction that I did not see coming, including moments that I did not expect to have in this series whatsoever, which were some really gut-wrenching, heart-touching moments. Seriously. The highlight of this book, though, aside from just the ridiculous random nature of it, the wild, irreverent, fun, and crude and hilarious nature of it, it's the artwork. The artwork by Jeff Darrow is absolutely amazing. Highly detailed, filled with texture. I love what Dave Stewart and his like 69 assistants are doing with the coloring here. I love this book. You get wild, absurd situations with amazingly well-skilled, technically savvy artwork. This is amazing. Rich in detail, rich in enjoyment. That is what Shaolin Cowboy has stood for since its very first page, and it continues to do so. And Shaolin Cowboy, Cruel to Be Kin, issue number 4, got that sweet Jim Rugg variant right there. Also from Dark Horse, we got Minor Threats number 1. This is a new one. It's written by Patton Oswalt and Jordan Blum. It's got artwork by Scott Hepburn. This book was alright, so it's about a world in which there is a superhero verse, right? So there's this world populated by superheroes, and this story are about the villains. So it's about the villains that hang out at the bar that aren't necessarily the big dog villains. They're just the ones trying to get by. They're the minor threats. Get it? Well, what happens in this world if one villain decides to go far and above the rules and kill one of the sidekicks to one of the heroes, and now the heroes are turning all the heat up on the villains. So it was interesting, some cool characters, some cool concepts, got a nice kind of bouncy, lighthearted approach to it, so it's not taking itself super serious, but at the same time it's just not super corny cheeseball and goofball. So it's kind of a nice balance in between. We also have Lonesome Hunters issue number 3. This is written and illustrated by Tyler Crook. I love Tyler Crook's artwork. There are certain times where the colors get a little bit kind of just muddied together. Outside of that, I really like this book. I really like the atmosphere provided. I like this watercolor texture that's going on. It's about this old man who has this mystical sword. He's been out of the life for years and years, but now a young woman's uncle has been killed by a bunch of magpies, a bunch of crows and ravens or whatnot, and now he has to kind of come out of retirement and heed the call to adventure. So things are ramping up. This was really cool. I think this is only a 4-issue series, which makes sense, some of the things that happen here, because it seems to be setting up the conclusion, but I've been really enjoying the Lonesome Hunters from Dark Horse. Let's jump over to DC. We got Detective Comics 1063. This is the second issue by Rom V, Raphael Albuquerque, and Dave Stewart on the coloring. I loved it. I thought it was great. Just as good as the first issue for me. We got these new figures making their move into Gotham. They got a connection. There's also a connection to old school Grant Morrison Batman type stuff in here. The artwork is amazing. The colors pop. There's some stuff that's done here with the character of Harvey Dent that I didn't feel like I was going to be on board for at first, but then with the way the whole story kind of goes, I was really kind of into it, and I'm really digging this backup story by Simon Spurrier and Danny on the art featuring Commissioner Gordon. So far, 2 issues in, I think it's a really solid run. Could be the start of a very strong and hopefully successful run in tenure at Detective Comics from this team because they're killing it. Then we got Swamp Thing issue number 16 of 16. Sad day. This is the last day of Rom v Swamp Thing, but let me tell you what, it goes out with a bang. This was such a nuanced, philosophical, and extra special issue for me. It wraps everything up. The story, the narrative, the relationships between the characters, and the thematics that have been set up in this book. Everything gets wrapped up. It all comes to a head, and it does it in, to me, quite explosive fashion. It's not going to be one of the most dynamic and action books that you read this week, but it will definitely be one of the most dynamic books in thinking that you read this week. I have loved what Ron V, Mike Spicer, Mike Perkins, and company, Aditya Bidikar, what they've been doing on the Swamp Thing. They set up something new. They played with the mythology. They tweaked it a little bit, and now it's set up for something else to happen as this character, Levi, as the Swamp Thing, evolves forward. Evolution being the key there. Swamp Thing number 16, though, loved it. Then we got Tales of the Human Target issue number 1. This is a $6 series. I think I would say it's a one-shot, but it says book 1, so maybe there's more. Anyway, it's a bunch of short stories kind of tied into the Human Target book that Tom King's doing right now, Greg Smallwood. I've actually been liking that book. I understand why some people don't like it because of some of the choices made about certain characters. But I love Greg Smallwood's artwork. Now, in here, we have Mikhail Hanin, we got Kevin McGuire, we got Raphael Albuquerque, we also got a little bit of Smallwood. So I was really excited because of this art team. It utilizes a lot of the Justice League International characters like the main series does. But at the end of the day, it was really kind of dull and boring. And it's just, I'm finding myself not enjoying the work of Tom King anymore. Everything just kind of feels like it's padded for no reason at all. I don't know, but Human Target, Tales of, didn't like that at all, and I am enjoying Human Target. Then we got Batman White Knight Presents Red Hood issue number 2, so this is the concluding chapter, I believe, of this series that's set in the middle of Beyond the White Knight. I'm loving Beyond the White Knight. It's back with issue 5 next month, I believe. But this kind of just wraps up the origin of Jason Todd as Robin, as Red Hood in this world, this White Knight-verse, White Knight-verse, whatever, let's call it that. The Murphy-verse. But, so it's telling his story, it's wrapping it up. He's got his own version of Robin, and so it fully realizes her story and just kind of sets it all up so that when they show up in issue number 5, you kind of know their backstory, who they are, why Jason's different than the Jason we know from the regular continuity or whatever. That being said, I thought the book was all right, but I was kind of disappointed that Simone DeMeo did not come, just did a few pages on the artwork here. Couldn't even do both of the issues, but I don't know. George Kambadias, the artwork's all right. It's all right. It's all right. Then we got Robin here with issue number 17. This is the final issue of Robin. So Josh Williamson says goodbye for the character for now, and I really liked it. I thought it was a nice, solid wrap-up and ending for this series. It kind of brings everything that's been building up since issue 1 in this series to a head. Hell, before issue 1, with all the little, there was a couple little like backup stories in Detective Comics or something. So all that stuff comes to a head. Now, they had a nice, clean ending already, and it felt like this book was gearing up a direction shift and it was going to go forward a little bit more, but instead what it did was kind of had a little bit of a coda, right? So this kind of takes these characters, puts them on this new road, on this new path, a new status quo. What I really like about this book, and then blazing forward, going on into Batman versus Robin, that's where we're going to see Damian next. What I've loved about this book is that this book has kind of like what Chuck Dixon and Tom Grummett and others did back in the 90s with Tim Drake in the Robin solo series, where they built a world around Tim Drake with Spoiler and some of his own villains and his own, his own supporting group and all that, like supporting cast. That has happened now with Damian, and it's been done so well. Flatline, Connor, everybody else from the Lazarus Island, what's her name, Mother Dragon or whatever, like all of it has been incredibly well done to build up a world around Damian. Let's just hope that it doesn't get wasted. Anyway, that being said, I really liked that Robin run. Then we got Deathstroke Incorporated going on with issue number 12. This is the third part of Deathstroke Year 1, revisiting the first year of Deathstroke. Deathstroke, of course, is a big deal right now in Dark Crisis. If you're a little bit unfamiliar about his past, you can check this out, and it shows you how he becomes Deathstroke, including his initial confrontation with Oliver Queen, Green Arrow. That's what we get here, and I really liked it. I think Ed Brisson and Dexter Soy are crafting a rather interesting, dynamic, and action-packed story that I'm totally engaged in, so I'm down for it. Then we got Action Comics 1046, the penultimate issue, maybe, of this whole Warworld saga. Now, I like this Warworld saga. I like the story. I like this setup, but it does feel to me at this point that we are just going in circles and just making a little bit of progression issue by issue, but just kind of repeating, retreading, and inching forward, right? But now we're inching closer and closer to the big finale, so this sets up the whole Warworld, what is it, Armageddon or something? Warworld Apocalypse. So that's going to be wrapping everything up. It says Forged by Steel. I was excited to get a Steel appearance here. Maybe in the backup story. I did stop reading. Yep, Steel's in the backup story. That makes sense to put the backup story on the cover, majorly. Anyway, on to Boom Studios, we have Wynd, The Throne in the Sky, issue number 1. This is a return of Wynd, so if you haven't read it already, this is collected in 2 trade paperbacks or 2 hardcovers that will get you caught up to this. Wynd was a 10-issue series, and now we're starting a new series. It is fantasy, young adult fantasy by James Tynion and Michael Dialinus, and I loved the first 10 issues. Not something that I'm typically into, young adult fantasy, but I found myself transfixed by the characters, interested in the worlds and the politics involved in the world building and the character work. So I was really digging that, and it's been gone for a few months, but now it's back, and this was awesome. This first issue was way better than the first issue of Wynd proper. The book was originally set up to kind of be, originally it was supposed to be a graphic novel, right? And so then they decided to break it up into chapters, into issues. And so the first issue of Wynd didn't really read very well as a first issue. This one does, though. This gives us the appropriate first issue that we deserve for Wynd. This is really cool. If you've never read Wynd before, you can read the 10 issues before and jump in here, or you could just jump in here. It does explain everything that happened, and you get thrown right in. It's a really cool world. There's fairies, there's the prophecies, there's a vampire kingdom called they're called the Vampirium, right? The Vampirium. Like, how wild is that? So cool. Anyway, imaginative, cool, and the artwork, super solid. So you should check that out. It's the only Boom book I read this week. From Marvel, we have Damage Control issue number 1. I wasn't expecting much out of this, and it was actually a little bit better than I was expecting. It had a little bit of a kind of a fun sense of humor about it, but for the most part, I'm not going to be coming back to this one. So this is about Damage Control, spotlighting a new recruit to Damage Control. There's a lot of cameos from heroes. It's very goofy. It's very silly. I think they're trying to capitalize on Damage Control, the MCU version of Damage Control being spotlighted in shows like She-Hulk and what was that last show they were in? Miss Marvel, in the Spider-Man movies and whatnot. So, I mean, it's all right, but it didn't do much for me. Just like this one, Axe, Judgment Day, issue 3. I haven't been enjoying this book. I have found it to be dull and boring and hard to get through each issue. I continue that trend here in issue number 3. It feels like it's supposed to be this big, epic thing in scope, but I'm just not vibing it, man. It's just not something I'm into. Now, I know people are into it, and that's super cool. People that are really liking X-Men, Avengers, Eternals, or a mixture or combination of those, they seem to really be getting the payoff here. So definitely, if that's something you've been invested in, I think you might want to be checking this out. But if you're just jumping in, cold case like me, I'm just not digging it. It's just not for me. Then we got Fantastic Four 46. This is the final issue of Dan Slott. It was a pretty solid issue. Reed gets to meet his half-sister fully. We get some throwbacks to some old school Fantastic Four continuity. There's a character named Huntara from the Paul Ryan and Tom DeFalco run that I just adore, and I was super excited to see that character make an appearance. But it was a nice, fun story that kind of really focused in on Reed, his sense of family, and just told us a really nice kind of series of adventures of the Fantastic Four, like a typical day of, through the eyes of Reed's half-sister, who's being introduced to this group for the first time. So it was pretty cool. I liked it. Dan Slott ties up everything. He doesn't really leave much dangling from his run, so the next team can come right in and just take it on. David Pepose is going to be doing the next couple issues, which are going to be Axe tie-ins, and then it's going to relaunch in November with the new #1. Ryan North is going to be the writer. It promises a small, more character-focused run for a while. Then we got Amazing Spider-Man issue #8. Inconsistent run. It's been up, it's been down. This issue is up. I really like this issue. Now, I know we're still not talking about the Mary Jane stuff. She's got kids. She's married. How's that possible? What's going on? Why does Aunt May not really like Peter right now? We don't know. We're 8 issues through. We don't know. You think we're going to find out in the Axe tie-ins? Probably not. However, we've been teased this build-up into this Spidey goblin suit where Norman has built this suit and this glider for Peter, and now Peter wants to work with Norman, or Norman wants Peter to work for him. All that kind of comes to a head here. In the last issue, I thought we had a really solid fight, sky fight, if you will, between Vulture and Spider-Man. It continues in here. It feels pretty cool. I love the artwork. I really feel like taking that month off after issue #5 has really got Ramita and Hannah back in sync. They're cranking out some good dynamic action sequences here. It is just still, to me, the coloring. There's certain things I'm starting to pick it out. There's certain lines that are being redone in color by the colorist, right? And I think that's throwing me off because I want to see the line work in the ink. So that's kind of messing me up. But aside from that, I liked this issue of Amazing Spider-Man. Thought it was solid. Captain America's Symbol of Truth, issue #3. No, issue #4. Wow, I've been reading this for 4 issues. Every time a new one comes out, I go, man, should I even read that? I don't even remember what's going on. Like, honestly, I don't remember. I know that in Sentinel of Truth or Sentinel of Liberty, I got them all mixed up. Sentinel of Liberty, they're doing this whole conspiracy thing. I forget what's going on, but as soon as I start reading, I get absorbed into it. Yes, they're doing the stuff with Wakanda and the White Wolf, and he's setting up this war, and he's setting up Sam against T'Challa and all this kind of stuff. So that's all cool, and it's intriguing. So as I'm reading the book, I enjoy it. R.B. Silva's artwork is awesome. It's kinetic. It's explosive. It's bombastic as it needs to be. It's not a heavy-handed book. It's got the character of Sam Wilson kind of right, while Keen as the new Falcon is still working for me. Some action stuff. I'm liking it. I'm liking it. I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. Then we got Carnage here with issue #5. I'm still having a struggle with this direction on Carnage. I appreciate that Ron V's doing something that nobody else has ever attempted with this character of Carnage, but it's starting to lose me just a little bit. Now, maybe that's because I am attached to what I want out of a Carnage book, so I'm trying to read along with an open mind. I love the artwork. I think the artwork by Mana has solidified as the issues progress. The direction of the series, kind of like Venom right now, they're just not going in a place with a character that I quite get super interested in. So there's some things being played with here that are neat, but at the same time, it kind of loses me. So I don't know. I'm willing to see how this is going to unfold, but right now it's just not what I've been expecting. Not that that's a bad thing. I mean, I applaud that nobody's ever done a Carnage book like that. Trust me. Then we got Genus Vell. Was it Genus Vell? Genus Vell, Captain Marvel, #2. This is harkening back to that Captain Marvel series by Peter David. This is written by Peter David, but it is set in current and modern day continuity. You get to find out what's been going on with this iteration of Captain Marvel, Rick Jones, their connection. Does it still exist? What's going on there? I really appreciate the kind of throwback to this series. I loved, in the late 90s, early 2000s, I loved Peter David's Captain Marvel series. I think that he was doing one of the most consistent, best superhero comics on stands at that time. This throws back to that. It's got a nice sense of humor. It's got a lot of calls to previous Peter David stuff, including some of his work on Hulk. Of course, Rick Jones is involved, so I like it. I think if you're a fan of that run, if you're familiar with that run, you will be into this. If you're not, you're probably going to be lost, a little bit of confused, and be like, what the hell's Robbie smoking? Why does he like this book so much? It's because I love that original. I wish they would put that out in an omnibus format. From Image, we have Beware the Eye of Odin, issue number 3. This is by Doug Wagner, Tim Odlin. I love this book. It's just a 4-issue series, but each issue is extra sized. It's a Viking saga. It's about this dude who winds up in possession of the Eye of Odin. He has to take that Eye of Odin back to its rightful owner, the Frost Giant King or whatever, by a certain time, or he's going to die a horrible death because of this curse. But it's not that simple. There's all kinds of like ogres and trolls and things, and we had Doug and Tim on the channel, and they were talking about when they were coming up with this book, Doug just wanted to set something up to be able to spotlight and highlight Tim's ability. And that's what this book is. It highlights Tim Odlin's ability to the nth degree. The artwork is amazing. Most of the issue is just giant Viking action. It's just fights. It's brutal. It's fun. It's ridiculous. It's lighthearted. It's serious. It's got amazing layouts, great bold use of color. The line work is amazing. The pages never feel super cluttered, even though there's a lot going on. This book really impresses me, and I think that Tim's work is tightening each issue, and I'm really excited to see the finale. Then we got the Department of Truth. It's returning here with issue number 20. Wow, 20 issues already of Department of Truth, and I'm still loving it. Still reading like one of like a gnarly 90s Vertigo book. I'm loving it. Martin Simmons on the artwork just astounds me. Each issue of Department of Truth is nothing but exposition. That's all it is. It's always one person telling another person. That's what's happening here. Cole's husband or boyfriend, I can't remember how that plays out, but he's being told the story now from the other perspective, and it's some interesting stuff. So it's going over information we've already gotten about a world in which consensus belief changes reality, and how the governments of the world are using this to kind of control not just the narrative, but to control reality. You got reptilians, you got the Nazi bell, you got all kinds of super freaking cool stuff. The artwork always sells it for me, because even though every single issue is one person just telling another somebody an info dump of information about conspiracy theories and this story and how it all ties together, the artwork is always fascinating, dark, visceral, guttural. Like, it gets right to me. I love this book. I think it's so freaking good. Then we got Public Domain, issue number 3. Chip Zdarsky doing this book, writing and illustrating a tale about a comic book creator who kind of got dicked out of a lot of money and a lot of rights for his comic book character. It's about the 2 sons of this dude. They find a piece of information that may show that he should have sole creatorship. So now they got this big looming court battle ahead of them, possibly, with this big corporation that has made billions of dollars off this character. But at the heart of it, and as much as I love Chip Zdarsky doing this story, kind of focusing in on some of the older creators, the veterans in this industry, and some of the stuff they've had to go through, like the Kirbys, right? The Siegel and Schusters, right? There's been a lot of stuff going through, the Wolfmans, the Coens, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? So to do a story that's about that, but at the same time have the story actually be a very sincerely, deeply rooted family drama and make that work astounds me. I love it. Nothing super exciting about the artwork, but the story, very solid, and the character work is superb. Then we got Gunslinger Spawn, issue number 11. Holy cow, now that this book has caught up to the first issue of The Scorched, it's now taking everything that was set up in the first issues, and now we're moving forward with it. Todd McFarlane does a really great job here with the pacing. I think he's getting better as a writer, pacing his books out. Of course, he's an artist too, so he knows how to do it, and he always seems to get the best out of the artists that are working with him. Brett Booth is giving us a really dense, action-packed 90s style action comic here that's got some really cool wow moments as well. So Gunslinger Spawn is fun. And then we got Scorched here with issue number 9. Sean Lewis has been doing a great job on Scorched, building this team, and now he's taking a moment, taking some time to go back and show us a little bit more in-depth development of some of these characters. In this one, we spotlight medieval Spawn, and we also dig into the mystery and history of the Plague Spawn, and I'm loving it. And Sokovia's artwork, dynamic, kinetic, energetic, absolutely fantastic. All 3 of those words mean the same thing. but we'll use them anyway. From Vault Comics, we have End After End #1. This is written by Tim Daniel and David Andry, and it's got artwork by Sanandu C. I got that Liana Kangas cover right there. I think that's super cool. This was an interesting book. It's a decent setup. It was solid. I really like the artwork too. The artwork's got this raw, edgy, kind of gritty style. So the premise is what really sells you on this book, and they deliver the premise in the first issue efficiently, and I'm excited to see where this is going to blossom, because the idea is this. At the moment before your death, you get transported to this world, right? Or some people do. This dude, he's like falling, he's about to get hit by a subway car or something like that. All of a sudden he's in this on this war, this battlefield, right? In this war against this dark, evil force which has this nefarious purpose of trying to bring about the end of the universe, and all these people who are literally moments away from death now have to hang on to life to defend the universe or something. So after the end, or right before the end, is another battle that you must do and fight that until the end, and then when you have that end, you get to your end. Now that sounds complicated, but it's a kind of a neat concept, and I really liked and appreciated the way they very efficiently, economically told this story. David Andry, of course, did Resonant. Tim Daniel's done some work before, including being the co-writer on the plot, so I was really excited for this book, and it did not let me down. I'm very excited to see how that's going to develop. Then we have By the Horns, Dark Earth, issue #4. This is a solid book, so we take a moment to go back to the past to set up a villain for this series. Now, the series has a cool thing. After the end of the first volume of By the Horns, they thought that they had saved the day, they killed the evil sorcerer, and that magic would come back to the world and everything be fine. However, that's not the case. So Elodie is now on this quest again to find out what's going on. And we haven't really properly been introduced to this villain, and I was kind of curious about that in the last 3 issues, but leading to issue 4, it made it all work, because it goes back to the past and it builds this character's story with trauma, tragedy, drama, and excitement. I really love it. And of course, the artist, Jason Murr, I believe, is absolutely fantastic. Yes, Jason Murr and Marcus Nasso. I really liked it. It was touching, and this was one of the best moments of building a new villain for a comic book series in a long time. 100%. By the Horns still rocks. Then we got Deja Thor's Fairy Tales. This is a one-shot from Dynamite. We already had a Vampirella and Red Sonja fairy tale one-shot, and it was basically just taking those characters, putting them in a familiar fairy tale, and doing your own version with it. Ron Mars is here with Deja Thor's, tells Deja Thor's story a la Snow White. So it was cool. The artwork was nice. It was fresh. It moved very briskly, and I had a lot of fun with it. And then finally, from Dynamite, we have Nyx. Nyx is here with issue #9. The penultimate issue of the series. I'm having a lot of fun. It never takes itself too seriously, and it's actually starting to really work on some character stuff, right? The first 5 issues were just fun and silly and sexy and neat, right? But then in this newest arc, this build up to the finale is really getting into some character moments and some really touching type stuff. So I like it. I'm not saying it's the greatest thing out there, but this has been a really solid, fun read for me from Dynamite. So that's what I read. That's what I thought. What are you reading? What are you digging? What are you thinking? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out. And you can check us out at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support the channel. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop, boom!